Yeah, and imagine being sworn in at a time like this. These guys immediately confronted with some of the biggest challenges that they're going to be facing. In fact, if you were not a first-term congressman, if this is not the first time you're being sworn in, you are not allowed to bring your family here because of COVID restrictions here at the Capitol. So a reminder of the biggest challenge they face right away. We heard a lot about the agenda and some of the big items that this new Congress wants to take on right away. New Congress, same challenges.
Obviously, we have to pick right up where we left off and continue to fight this virus.
The 117th Congress was officially sworn in Sunday in the face of dual economic and health crises due to the pandemic. Democrat Dan Kildee from Michigan says the new Congress's agenda has to start with vaccine distribution and more stimulus.
Getting a national strategy on vaccinating every American who wishes to be vaccinated.
Illinois Democrat Sherry Bustos says she wants this Congress to work on a large infrastructure package to boost the economy, an unfulfilled priority from the last Congress.
Meaning roads, bridges, locks and dams, schools that have aged out, rural hospitals.
As a ranking member on the Natural Resources Committee, I'm going to be doing a lot of work on conservation.
Arkansas Republican Bruce Westerman says he hopes there's bipartisan work on both the environment and the economy, which he says are linked.
But the two go together.
Later this week, the new Congress will almost immediately be thrust into a divisive political storm.
I announced some time ago that I will be objecting to certain states on January 6th.
Dozens of Republicans say they plan to object to Joe Biden's Electoral College win in multiple states, and that includes many members just sworn in, like Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert.
I spoke with the president just a few weeks ago in the Oval Office, and I encouraged him to continue to fight for the American people, to fight for election integrity.
The challenge, according to Republicans who plan to file them, is based on alleged voting irregularities in some states.
We got a chance, and we owe it to the American people to fight for their right that their votes be counted correctly.
According to multiple state elections officials who've spoken to NewsNation after Election Day, the votes have been counted fairly and properly. And dozens of legal challenges brought by the Trump campaign and some state-level Republican attorneys have been dismissed in court for lack of evidence. Many Democrats say the objections will undermine the legitimate will of voters.
The president ought to be ashamed of himself and what he's doing right now, trying to incite people to take action that is, again, disruptive to our democracy.
So this new Congress is really jumping into a whirlwind. And by the way, the other major thing that happens every 2 years on this day is that their first act is to vote on a speaker. And Nancy Pelosi regained her gavel back as she will be Speaker of the House for the next 2 years. It was a slimmer margin than what she had a couple of years ago, but nonetheless had enough votes to get that done, guys.
And Joe, you mentioned COVID restrictions. Did that have any impact on the voting today?
So, as we mentioned here with Speaker Pelosi, every member had to be present today. And, typically they've been voting by proxy, these guys in the House. They could stay at home. But everybody had to be here today. And if they weren't, Speaker Pelosi might not have actually become Speaker again. If there were enough members that, didn't come to the Capitol here and stayed home, she had a razor-thin margin. She won 216 to 209. So even though Democrats have a majority in the House, COVID would have had a big impact on who controlled the power in the House if enough people didn't show up. But as we mentioned, that did in fact happen for the Speaker. She was able to get enough people here. Only 1 or 2 members actually stayed home today.
Joe, a lot of the talk from Washington all across the country is the process of objecting to the Electoral College results. What is that going to look like on Wednesday?
So how that's done is basically it's state by state. So you'll have Georgia electors that will be announced, and you'll have Michigan's electors that will be announced. And for each one of those, there has to be an objection from both one member of the House and one member of the Senate. We know that that's going to happen. And every objection that happens results in a debate for the House and for the Senate. They're going to have to go back into chamber and discuss it and then end up potentially voting on it. So this is not going to be a quick process. It could be one that goes over one full day, actually. And we're expecting, in fact, that to happen because there are a number of states that Republicans have already said they're going to be challenging this week.
And Joe, talk about the time frame of the certification process. That's usually no longer than an hour, right? How long do you think this is going to last?
This may potentially go beyond a full day. Like I said, they get up to 2 hours actually to debate and discuss, and members can come up and testify, and a number of people who object will have each a couple of minutes to give their own objections and to present their evidence as to why they're going to be objecting. So when you have a process like that, and again, it's that way not total, but for each individual state that gets an objection, we're expecting potentially 5, maybe even 6 different states that Republicans are going to be objecting to their results. So this is going to be a lengthy process, and it may very well carry over into the next day. They may have to adjourn and come back and figure this thing out beyond a 24-hour period.
Joe Khalil reporting for us live from Washington. Joe, thanks.